Talking to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell. Before the World War II in 1938, the British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain traveled to Munich to meet Adolf Hitler, and because of his fear of the outbreak of a Second World War, the purpose of Chamberlain's visit was to get a read of Hitler's character and what is going on in his mind. Upon leaving Munich, Chamberlain thought he understood what was going on in the mind of the German Führer, and he thought that Hitler was trustworthy. Despite this, after the outbreak of World War II, history proved that Chamberlain's analysis of Hitler's personality was actually wrong. This applies to all of us when we try to analyze the personalities of strangers by noticing the first impression of their facial expressions, their bodies, and even the way they speak. In this book, Malcolm Gladwell discusses the topic of analyzing the stranger's personalities. He mentions several examples, including the judge's analysis of the defendants' personalities by studying their criminal record, noting their facial expressions, and the way they speak during pleadings. A study conducted in 2017 in which Harvard economist Cyndil Mullinathan studied the decisions to release the defendants in New York, where an artificial intelligence program was given the same basic information that the judges receive, such as the age and the criminal record. The result was that the defendants who were released by the judges were 25% more likely to commit other crimes compared to those who were released by the artificial intelligence program. This proves that judges believe that they can assess strangers based on their appearance and their way of speaking. In fact, we are all overconfident about our ability to make personal judgments about others based on false evidence that we build on appearances and words. Bit to remember, most people have a misconception that they can judge others based on false evidence that they build after assessing their appearance, body language, and way of speaking. One of the reasons why people are deceived by appearances and first impressions is that they usually assume that what they see in others represents reality without any doubt. An example of this is Ana Montes, an intelligence analyst who worked for the CIA, who later turned out to be a Cuban spy who handed over many American secrets to the Cuban government. Although some of her American colleagues noted her suspicious behavior, there was not enough evidence to prove her involvement in espionage. The problem facing her colleagues at the CIA was very similar to the problem we all face when we believe that what we see is the truth without any suspicion. We assume honesty, even if the evidence indicates suspicion and deception. Another example was Bernie Madoff, the American financier who collected more than $60 billion from thousands of investors, as he was claiming to make huge profits until he was discovered by the financial auditor Harry Markopoulos, who went against all the investors and strongly doubted the truth of Madoff's trade, and eventually he managed to detect his tricks. Bit to remember, assuming the truth in all matters is a human nature, and few of us are able to question the clearest things and reveal the deception that it hides. The American series Friends is one of the most famous TV series of the 90s. It is interesting in this series that if you watch one of its episodes while turning the sound off, you can still follow the events clearly and in detail, because all the events and feelings that are going on in the series appear clearly on the faces of all the actors. Joey had a very special facial expression of surprise when he opens his mouth and his eyes go wide. But Ross showed signs of anger on his eyebrows and eyes. In general, you can read the dialogue and the events just by noticing the facial expressions and body language of the actors of the series. We can describe the feelings in the series Friends as transparent feelings. Transparency in feelings means that a person's behavior reveals a true picture of his or her inner feelings. It is no secret to us that transparency in feelings plays a big role in our judgment of people by noticing their facial and body expressions. But in fact, this transparency may mislead our judgment of people. This is because what appears on facial expressions does not always express what is going on in the minds. Bit to remember, transparency means showing all what is in your mind and inner feelings through your external behavior and expressions, and it is one of the easiest ways to read the personalities and minds of others. In 2007, A British student named Meredith Kirker who was studying in Italy was murdered by a criminal named Rudy Getty. Although Rudy had a long criminal record and his DNA traces were scattered at the crime scene. However, local authorities were accusing Meredith's roommate, Amanda Knox, as the primary suspect. Despite the absence of any physical evidence against Amanda, the police charges against her were based only on the suspicious behavior that she was showing immediately after the crime. As after she found her colleague's body when she returned to the room, she calmly called the police. She also did not show any feelings of psychological breakdown like crying and sadness as all of Meredith's college classmates showed, and she made some suspicious and confused statements to the media. When questioning Amanda, the Italian police investigators relied on the assumption of transparency, as shown by the cast of Friends. Despite her innocence, her facial expressions and way of speaking were enough to place her as the primary suspect in the crime. But the problem with all of this is that some people are simply not transparent about their feelings, and their behavior does not necessarily reflect what is on their minds. In fact, it is a psychological feature that some people use to change their external appearances and expressions to hide what they feel or what is going on in their minds. But to remember, transparency in expressing feelings is not a general rule that applies to everyone, so sometimes we can be deceived by external appearances and expressions.
Thanks for watching. Please follow our social media accounts. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel.